he also works. And thank you, Ryan, for your time. Let's talk about we mentioned John Mateer, what he does, your thoughts about him, what he will mean to Oklahoma. Obviously, they have they have others. The wide receivers have to be healthier. Your thoughts about them, because they really did. They blew a tire last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be so important to the team, just basically balancing out what the offensive approach was. You know, I feel like the biggest thing about Oklahoma last year, and obviously we're talking about a new offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, but they just didn't have an offensive identity to me. You know, like I feel like every game I watched of Oklahoma, I just really didn't understand what they were trying to accomplish, what their overall identity was, what their persona was. Like I didn't understand them at all. And I do think that with Coach Arbuckle now calling the offense, with John Mateer, with his dual threat ability, obviously he can run the football. He ran for over 800 yards last year, had 15 touchdowns. That'll be great as kind of a de facto 1-2 punch with the transfer running back out of Cal, Jaden Ott. But I do think that overall he is a much more consistent passer than what we have seen, obviously, from Jackson Arnold in his short time. So I think that just leveling out offensive production from a passing game and run game perspective, making it a more balanced approach just in general. But overall, I need to see more offensive identity. I think that there's some talent there. I think there's underlying upside to that group. I think it's just all about finding the identity under Coach Arbuckle in year one.
This past year in the draft was a little quarterback dry. Obviously, when you see someone like Jackson Dart, who most years, I'm not saying he wouldn't have been a second-day pick, but he wouldn't have been a first-day pick in most seasons. Second-day pick, sure. First-day pick, no. Do you see this year having more first-day picks, and who are those guys that are translating out to that now?
I mean, potentially. It's so funny that you mention it that way, because last year I felt like we were really trying to convince ourselves in the draft class of quarterback on the floors of player. Like, I mean, I felt like we were going through a revolving door of like, hey guys, Jackson Dart's really good. There was some like Will Howard fans. There were Kyle McCord fans, because you were trying to convince yourself that like, hey, the tools aren't great, but like you can get excited about the floor. Maybe, the consistency, the experience, blah, 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 blah. This year's class is much more about betting on ceilings than it is betting on floors, which is a good and an unsettling thing as well. Because, I mean, there's a reality where a Lenora Sellers out of South Carolina, for instance, takes the next jump and he's the first overall selection. There's a chance that Fernando Mendoza, the transfer from Cal to Indiana, could be in that type of conversation. Obviously, we know guys like Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Allar, like they've been on the radar for a couple years. All of those guys have legitimate tools to get excited about, but none of them are close to finished products, which most kids aren't at this juncture in their college careers. But I really think that it's exciting that you're betting on tools this time of year more than just betting on floors. And I do think that it is going to end up being a much better draft at the quarterback position, especially at the top in 2026.
Sticking with the quarterbacks, Ryan, the Big 12, a league that's got a lot of returning guys coming back. Now, I don't know how many of them are actually NFL-level prospects, but as far as good college quarterbacks, it's a league that's littered with them. You've got, obviously, blanking on Arizona State, Sam Leavitt, Sawyer Robertson are a couple of the headliners. Any thoughts on those or anybody else from the Big 12 and kind of where they stack up in the bigger picture conversation?
Yeah, Sam Leavitt is one of the most talented potential quarterbacks in 2026 if he chooses to declare. He's a little bit of a wild card right now because it's a roller coaster at times. Like you see it though, right? Like he has a good NFL frame. He's very athletic. He's got a really talented arm as well. It's just about being a more consistent player on a snap-to-snap basis. And I think he's going to be forced to be, now that they lost their great running back from last year in Scatabo. Like, I think that it's going to be much more on his shoulders to kind of lead this Arizona State offense. And they have a great wide receiver in Jordan Tyson, which I'm really excited about if he's able to stay healthy in 2025. He got banged up 2024. He's had a couple injuries early on in his career, but he's dynamite when he's healthy. So I like Leavitt a lot. I think that for me, like if I had to say like a little bit of a wild card, I actually just watched Josh Hoover from TCU for the first time about a week ago. And I was pleasantly surprised, man. Like I thought I was just going to see, to be honest with you guys, like I thought I was just going to see this like really fun, gimmicky RPO college spread quarterback. Like I thought that's what I was going to see. And it's okay to be that guy on the college level, but from an NFL draft perspective, that's obviously not quite as exciting, right? But he has legitimate tools as a passer, man. The arm is live. He's a good athlete. And I'll tell you what, like he has some moments where he processes really well. Another kid that played a little bit in 2023, especially down the stretch, but 2024 was his first true year as a starter. I'm excited to see what he does in year 2 because I think there's a lot of underlying tools there for the Horned Frogs. It's just now about getting them more experience under his belt.
So in the end, the Big 12, you have Morton at Tech. We want to see a full year from him, who puts up big numbers. He was, for the most part, last year remained healthy. Sorsby at Cincinnati. They have, Ryan, what appears to be, now I don't know how many are going to come back next year because all of them came back this year. They seem to have about 4 or 6 quarterbacks that could be maybe not first day guys, but at least they'll be drafted in the first, 3 to 4 rounds the next couple of years?
I mean, it's very possible. I mean, because I even skipped over Sawyer Robertson in the last question, but he's a guy that has some like mid to late round draftable grades around the league right now. And that's, barring the fact that he could have a nice jump in production from what he did last year with Baylor to what he did this year. I don't think his tools are quite as exciting as a Leavitt or a couple of the other guys in the conference that we've talked about already, like a Hoover, but I do think that his floor is pretty nice. Like he, has a big body and he's got a good frame and he's usually pretty consistent from his decision making. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned like a Brendan Sorsby. I have no idea what to expect from Sorsby this year. He's only a redshirt junior, so he could be in the 2027 draft. Yeah, he has tools, man. Like he's 6'3", he's 215, he moves well, he's got a strong arm. Like there's a lot of tools there. So yeah, I think the Big 12 is going to be really deep in quarterback talent. I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about a few guys that are draftable players over the next year or two.
Who is the I don't know how deep you are into film yet. I mean, you guys do this. It's amazing how much patience you have for it. But who is the best player, non-quarterback, on film you've watched so far?
Jermaine McCoy from Tennessee is probably the best. It's either him or Peter Woods from Clemson, the defensive tackle. But I love McCoy. Now, McCoy's coming back from an injury this offseason. I'm not even sure what his availability is going to be early on in the year for Tennessee, but that kid, press man corner that can run. Like that works, right? Like he's a bigger body guy. He was a former Oregon State transfer who spent 1 year at Tennessee this past year. I'd come over for the transfer portal. What he did at 19 years old last year in the SEC was frankly stupid. Like it was incredible stuff. He's got good ball production. He's got good ball skills. He's incredibly physical and patient at the line of scrimmage, and he can run and he can change direction. So I think Jermaine McCoy, if healthy, and again, he's coming off an injury, so that health is going to be a little bit of a question mark. He is a top 5 player in this class for sure, in my opinion. I think he'll be a top 10 pick as long as he tests well, which I think that he'll do. But it's between him or Peter Woods from Clemson. Clemson used him so weirdly last year, which is why I'm really happy that they have a new defensive coordinator, Tom Allen, because I think he'll be utilized a little bit more appropriately to what would be in the NFL. I mean, they had this kid at like 6'3", 310, 315, playing on the edge a lot, right? And like, that's not going to be his game. He's a pure penetration style 3 technique who's got a lot of upside in that regard. And I'm excited to see what he is now in Tom Allen's defense for the Clemson Tigers.
I want to ask you about one of the most obvious choices. Like when you started watching a Jeremiah Smith already at this point, I know it's still like early on, but are you just like what the hell? Like, I mean, it's just like, what's the reaction like?
We have guys in the industry, like, so the standard is you want to watch 3 to 4 games on players. Like that's kind of like the process you want to have to be thorough and make sure that you catch the good games, the bad games, and kind of see the development of a player throughout the season. But there's some guys that we always joke about that are like 10 play guys, right? Where it's just like, I don't really need to watch more than 10 plays. Now you do for your due diligence, but like Jeremiah Smith's one of those guys, right? Like, he's a blue chip, and he's going to be a blue chip, barring some crazy injury. And unfortunately, we've seen that. Like Justin Ross for Clemson a few years ago looked like he was going to be that guy, but then he gets banged up, and he's never quite the same. Barring some catastrophic injury, though, like 6'3", 220, can run, dominant as a freshman. Like Jeremiah Smith has a chance to be one of the best receivers that's come out in some time, as long as he stays healthy.
So you obviously yesterday, Arch Manning and Texas were on the clock. Your thoughts about Arch? He's young. You think he's probably going to be around for not only this year and hopefully if he's successful next year too? Or so what do you see of him as a prospect, or do you see enough of him yet?
I mean, in the 2 games that he started last year, and again, it's against Mississippi State and then a G5 team, so like it's not a great sample size, but you saw him like kind of littered throughout the rest of the schedule in some capacity. The tools are easy to see, right? Like I know that people want to, downplay him because, he's a Manning and that's why he has everything he has. I think that is a very like nearsighted opinion, right? Like obviously the Manning name helps him from an exposure perspective, but the kid's 6'4", he's 220, he can run and he can throw. Like he's a very talented kid. So we saw it in a very limited sample size. I didn't put a grade on him this offseason because I can't grade 90 throws that he threw last year, right? Like it's not enough of a sample size. It's not appropriate. And I don't think it would be a legitimate take by me to have a full grade on Arch Manning. But he has all the tools in the world. He's in a quarterback-friendly system. Steve Sarkisian is obviously a great offensive mind. I expect Arch to live up to pretty much all the hype that people are putting on him because he's in a great situation and he is a great talent.
Ryan Roberts, college football NFL draft analyst.
What, as you get into do you watch teams as a whole? Like, do you have an idea on who do you think is going to gel together and maybe make a run that people don't think about yet? Or are you just in your individual guys right now?
I mean, doing a little bit of everything. I like to, especially early in the process, like now I'm much more into the player-centric evaluation, but early on in the offseason, I was watching more of returning players for each team to try to get what I think is a good understanding of teams that are in that ballpark to be championship contenders, or at least teams that could be risers, teams that could be fallers even, right? Like I would like to get kind of an organic overarching perspective on college football. So definitely have kind of dove in that way, kind of like an advanced scouting approach versus an individual scouting approach. And I mean, no crazy hot takes, I guess, or whatever, but I am very high on the Clemson Tigers this year. I think that is a team that I mentioned a little bit with Tom Allen taking over as a defensive coordinator. It is a travesty how poor that defense was last year with how much talent it had on it. It really is. I mean, they have Avion Terrell at cornerback. They have the two defensive linemen that we're going to be talking about all offseason and Peter Woods and TJ Parker. They got Will Helt, the transfer in from Purdue, who was dynamite for the Boilermakers last year. No one talked about it because Purdue was horrible, a horrible football team. But I really think the Clemson defensively has all the tools to have a massive turnaround very quickly. It's really just going to depend on, you have TJ Moore, you have Bryant Wesco, you have Antonio Williams, your wide receivers are really good, your offensive line's experience coming back. It really is going to come down to if Cade Klubnik is the guy that we saw him at stretches last year. There were some times where he wasn't great, but then there were other times where he was awesome. Like in the Texas game, he was very, very good. So if we get more version of that Cade Klubnik, I think that's a team that is going to deserve the hype that a lot of people are putting on him this offseason.
No matter what, well, I guess if he does have a very good year, is Avery Johnson an NFL prospect down the road? He kind of seems to be one of those guys. It's a hell of a college player. Need another year of him, but do you see anything projecting with him?
I mean, he has a solid frame as far as being over 6'2". He's still skinny though. I mean, my last listing I saw him was 195, 200 pounds or something like that. So he's a skinnier player, great athlete though. I think the arm is good enough just from a pure arm strength, arm talent perspective. But to be honest, I kind of just, I didn't evaluate him this offseason yet. And I probably won't in the preseason portion of this. I'll probably wait to see if he has a sizable jump. He does strike me right now as just a really good college quarterback who will probably get a look in the NFL based upon some traits, but I don't necessarily view him as this potential high-level quarterback prospect as of today.
I just random had this name come across because we covered him in high school. I don't know if you got a chance to cover him yet, Ryan, but if we have you on, I'm sure we'll have you on again, but I'd love to hear your thoughts either way. Trey Wisner, Contravian Wisner, running back at Texas. Huge year last year. Very, very quiet 1,000-yard season in the SEC. Have you been able to watch much of him? And if so, kind of where do you have him in your running back thoughts?
Yeah, I watched both the Texas running backs. I even went back to 2023 to see Cedric Baxter, CJ Baxter, who was injured all of last year. So yeah, I've seen both Texas running backs. Trey is a very unique player, and I mean that very positively because the way he runs, you would assume that he's 215, right? He runs very hard, low to the ground, breaks a ton of tackles. But then you look and you're he's 196 pounds probably. He's so small compared to how his running style is. So I'm very interested to see utilization this year because obviously Jaden blew off to the NFL. I'm very curious to see how much Wisner is used as kind of more of a de facto, I don't want to call him a third down back, but more of a space option in that offense because he caught a decent amount of passes last year. But I'm excited to see if there's higher upside as a passing game weapon because 200 pounds power back de facto is not a huge sell for the NFL, but I love the way he runs. Great determination, great balance. If he has passing game impact, I mean, I think he's already a draftable player, but I think he could be a riser if he shows that he has some third down impact as well.
We saw him in high school. He was a spindly but fast as hell player.
He just slides,
if he got
man.
it, he was like flew. If he got in the open field, I don't care who they're playing against. Then, of course, he transferred last year went to DeSoto High School, which is an NFL or college football factory. But you're right. He runs hard. And he's tough because he also was on special teams early in his career and knocked people out on kick returns.
Well, the one thing I'll say about him is that's a player that we call a make-it football player on the next level. The fact that he has done the dirty work for Texas, right? Like he isn't a guy like a Cedric Baxter that I just mentioned, where it was like he came in and he was a guy from day one. Like you knew that he was going to be a big part of your running back room. Wisner's had to wait his turn a little bit. So he's had to do a little bit of that dirty work. And not a lot of people want to do that. And not a lot of running backs are going to put that on their resume. But it matters so much on the NFL level.
Yep.
Like we talk about longevity of a position that doesn't have great longevity. The ability to play special teams and to catch the football, like that raises your floor as a prospect so much. So that background that he has and that early career background is really going to pay off for him in the end. So it's actually a blessing in disguise that he had to wait his turn a little bit.
Yeah, we got to see him figure out that he had superpowers in real time. It was kind of awesome. Like confidence and going up. I'm curious about Marcel Reed at A&M. He is an excellent athlete. I mean, every tool that you'd want. Passing wise, he has an arm. I mean, he can stand on the 20 and hit the other 20 without doing much of, without straining his arm. All of those things. Can he develop as a passer? Do you see those traits there? Because last year their receivers were not A-plus guys. Now he's got a couple guys, including Casey Concepcion, who's an A-plus guy at receiver.
I think that they have formatted this offense a lot better to fit Marcel Reed's strengths as a football player. Like you mentioned, he's a dynamic runner. Like anybody could turn on the LSU game last year and see that. Like the kid is tremendous. But he made one of the better throws he did all season in that LSU game too, that not a lot of people talk about, like that deep bucket throw down the field. So he definitely has some upside in that department. Right now, I'm excited because I think that they got wide receivers that fit him a lot better. Like last year, they had trees, like the Noah Thomases of the world, the Ja'Day Walkers. They don't have as much size, but what they have now is instant separators. Like I'm dreaming of an A&M offense this year that's a lot more RPO heavy, where you have guys like Concepcion, who's just, let's throw him a screen out there. Let's throw him a glance. Let's throw him a slant, like in Bussy and the kid, the Craver kid that they got out of Mississippi State. Like they have these dynamite space players now, a lot different than what they had last year. So I think that one is going to fit better with them. And two, honestly, I remember going into last year, I was like, I don't really know if Connor Wegman really fits the style of offense that Colin Klein wants to run, what he did at Kansas State. Honestly, Marcel Reed does, right? So I'm interested to see if we see an evolution back with a Colin Klein. Like if this is a little bit more quarterback run game, it's a little bit more RPO centric. And if they do that, I think Marcel Reed has more than enough talent to be very successful. I actually picked Texas A&M a little. We did a A to Z Sports kind of just like an SEC ranking, and I was the highest of anybody on the panel for the Aggies this year. So I think that if Marcel Reed takes a step forward, I actually do think that they could take a year jump, especially on the offensive side of the football.
Man, thank you very much, Garrett.